to the Welcome to the SCP Town Hall today. I'm Joni Cannell, the president of the Division 13 Society of Consulting Psychology. And we have lots of VIPs here as well as a special guest, but I'm going to take a second to just get us started and say a few words about how excited we are to have a nice crowd here today. And it's going to be a little bit of fun here. We're trying to get the technical things set up with all our attendees. But first off, I want to thank our education domain. We happen to have our education domain lead on, Mira Brancu, as well as Daniel Oganyami, who's the producer for this podcast. So thank you for hosting the town hall. I call a podcast town hall, similar thing. We record it and put it on our YouTube channel after. And also thanks to everyone else for joining. And we have, like I said, our Bernardo Ferdman is our president-elect coming in. And we have Greg Pennington, who is our interim president-elect, who helped us out this year, and lots of other people too. So thank you all. First off, we have a couple of announcements before I get to our special guest. And I just want to give any domain leads an opportunity to say a few words about any upcoming events. And I have a little heads up for something too. I have the scoop. But first off, I'll pause for a second and see if anyone else wants to make an announcement.
Make an announcement. This is from Ed Domain, Education Domain. So the next psychologist in the business of behavior is in September. These things are amazing. You should look them up on our website. Also, we're putting together a cohort called the Levinson series. For those of you who are familiar with this, it's honoring Harry Levinson, our first cohort back after a few years. Lisa Marie Bobby is helping to produce that. And this is for early career psychologists who have cases that they want support and want mentorship. And we have an amazing facilitator that we've secured, Dr. Jennifer Wisdom. So please let us know if you want to be on the wait list, either for the fall and the spring. And then we're also working on a virtual conference. You'll hear more about that over time. Lisa is the chair of that. So we're excited to just plant a little seed for you for that one.
Excellent. Go on.
I was just going to say, we have a pre-registration form set up that I'm happy to share with the group. If anybody here is interested, it'll be an easy way to raise your hand, let us know you'd like to be involved. And also, if in your network you have any earlier career folks who might be interested, feel free to pass this on to them, and I'll share that with you guys.
Anyone else? All right, I will put a little plug in for the research domain here. I will first put a plug in for the next August town hall. And they related, you'll see in just a second. Our August town hall will focus on consulting psychologists conducting research. Yes, you can, as they say always in my exercise classes. Yes, you can. Consultants can do research, and we have examples of people who have done quite a bit and published it in the journal, in our consulting psychology journal, as well as other places, as well as presented at conferences. And we'll find out how they do that. You know, it's not always easy when you're out there consulting and not having access to all those things that researchers have access to. So there are ways, and look forward to that next time. And that'll also give a little maybe sneak preview into our research domain podcast, which will be coming out shortly. And we'll have a series of episodes on people who are publishing consulting psychology research in the Consulting Psychology Journal. So those are two things to look forward to. All right, without any more delay, I want to take this time to introduce a very special guest today. Somebody who does incredible amount of work for us and other divisions in the American Psychological Association. Maggie Helmus is our APA division liaison. She serves as an important connection between the Society of Consulting Psychology and the American Psychological Association. And she helps ensure that our division stays engaged with APA initiatives and advocates for interests of our members. And she's here to share what you can expect at this year's convention and highlight some of the many opportunities to learn and connect and get involved throughout the year, not just at APA. So it's going to be a bit of an open conversation, and I'll also add in, if in case you really want the inside scoop of Maggie, she likes cheese, Malbec, and books. And she's worked in nonprofits her whole life, so we can steer the conversation whatever direction you like. But let's start out with some interesting things about APA. So Maggie, please, so pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much. That was such a nice little welcome in. It's lovely to see everyone. Thank you for joining on a Monday. Who knows who's going to show up on a Monday, but you guys are really with it. So as Joni kind of already explained, I work at APA, but I'm a liaison for your division. I also work with divisions 10 through 29. So if you're part of any of those other ones, I also work with those. Not too many, but there's a few other managers in my office as well that handle the rest of them. We have about 53 right now. And basically, I'm a support system. I am here to help your leadership and through everything that they go through if they want it, or if they, sometimes maybe they don't want it, but I'm going to ask and be like, do you need anything? That is who I am. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about, like Joni said, what's going on at APA. Specifically, we had some cohort meetings recently around the topic of AI, which I think is kind of a hot topic for everyone, and it's ever changing. I'm also going to talk a little bit about advocacy in APA, and I did talk to specific offices in APA to get some like actual information, not just like me randomly figuring it out through some files. So this should be pretty up to date. I will say advocacy and AI is changing all the time. So we may go through some of this today, and by the end of the week, we might have some new news. Who knows? But we did mention I want this to be a conversation. So if you have a question, a comment, please feel free to put it in the chat. I will try to look at that. Also, you can raise your hand. You can even just start talking. You don't feel like you can't pipe in a little bit. I do not mind whatsoever. I think we've got a good group here. So I want to make this as beneficial for you as I can. So if there's a random question, don't be afraid. I will talk about a few other things, and I will probably finish with conventions since it's really top of mind for people. It's also kind of fun. It's next week. You get to see everyone. I will be there. So I'll go through some of those, but I will start with AI. I will stop there for a second if anyone has any questions, or I'm going to just continue on. I think we're good. Um, so as I mentioned, we recently had some cohort meetings, and these are basically, we have these twice a year. This has to do with your division leadership and the rest of the division's leadership. We usually try to get at least someone from the presidential trio of every division to make one of these meetings. We usually try to have 6 or so just to fit everyone, but also to make it more of a smaller meeting with our APA leadership. I'm usually on some of them. Some other offices like advocacy can be on it. I believe on this one, we had our ethics officer on there for some of it with AI. And basically, the topic this year was AI because it's something that divisions actually wanted. We asked what would be something that is important or something that they think should be spoken about, and AI was at the top of a lot of lists, or at least in the top 3. We had some really fruitful conversations, and I kind of just want to go over that a little bit with you and some of the stuff APA is doing. And again, like I said, this is ever changing. So I got some information. If it changes, you're always welcome to reach out to your leadership to get more information from me to see what's happening now and how this is kind of progressing. So really the broad consensus is that AI is reshaping psychology. And the way we work as like a pace, it exceeds existing professional, ethical, and policy frameworks. It is just, like I said, it's going, it's going, it's going, and it's kind of hard to grasp that and try to see, are you trying to get ahead of it? Or are we trying to stay pace with it? Are we nervous and we want to stay behind it? So that was a really big topic during all of these. Um, a lot of people in the division leadership emphasized the potential of AI because there is a lot of potential, but also the urgent need for APA leadership to guide this shift, to not just have the divisions figure it out. That's why we wanted to have a conversation about it so that we can kind of get that going. It might feel like we, some people might feel like we're behind. Unfortunately, I think it's just the fact of what this technology is. I think it was very enlightening during these conversations. And if anyone on your trio was on it, I feel free to speak on this as well. But it was very interesting to hear some of the positivity that some people feel for AI and how excited they are. And then you have the juxtaposed of people being like, I actually don't like this at all. I'm nervous. I think we need to learn more about this. I would prefer it not be happening pretty much. It's a very wide spectrum. And it was very interesting. We've got some really fruitful conversation from that. Um, we felt like we as APA need to continue the conversation. So that's really where these cohort meetings left off. It was kind of just the beginning. I think we learned from these that there's just so much more for us to learn. There were so many topics and items that were brought up that none of us had thought about before about how AI is affecting psychology on the day to day versus the long haul. So it's definitely something that I know we did one cohort meeting for it. It's not going away. We definitely are starting to talk about it more in leadership in our office. And it's definitely something that's going to just continue on because it's not going away. And we know that. Um, so a few things I kind of want to go over about what APA is doing, not just the conversation, but just like some of the health advisories we're putting out as well. We did put out two health advisories recently. The use of generative AI chatbots and wellness applications for mental health. I know that's really important to a lot of people, and also artificial intelligence and adolescent well-being. That one was specifically on AI, but we also have done a lot of stuff just with young adults and technology, social media, and now it's AI on top of all of it. So we've had a few health advisories. I believe we were going to continue working on, we have, always some others coming down the pipeline. We also released a guide on navigating AI generated advice thoughtfully and safely. This is a guide that offers evidence-based suggestions on appropriate or inappropriate uses of AI to address mental, emotional, and behavioral uh, health issues. So these are all things that APA is doing as we continue this conversation with AI. If you ever have thoughts, if you want to be heard about this, please tell your leadership. We like hearing from divisions. We need to hear from members. Um, we only know what we know, and conversations like the cohort meeting and conversations like this help us learn a lot more about where APA should be in the conversation with AI. So I will stop there for a second. I know AI is a big topic. If anyone has anything that they want to say, or I know it's a kind of a large topic to go over. So
Well, personally, I'm glad to hear that APA is doing so much. I've been involved in some of the initiatives and in that meeting, for example, and advocate from a consulting psychology perspective. We're looking at AI for our division in terms of how to use it more, how to leverage it,
yeah,
and always are looking at if APA can give us tools or recommendations for our division, for example, even just for like, tracking membership or marketing or I don't know, other things like that too.
That's a great item to bring up. I will make note of that. I'm sure you're not the only division that's thinking about it. You're probably just the first one that's said anything. So thank you for that.
I'm really
Yeah,
interested.
there's,
Who's
go
that?
ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm really interested in learning what's being done to use AI in organizational leadership assessment. And, to me, that would be something of particular interest to consulting psychologists. So if anybody has any insight or things to share, or if there's any APA guidance being developed in that regard, like there is in clinical, for example.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to
Well,
add
it's
to.
being used. It's being used more and more. A lot of the companies that have assessments are incorporating AI. Deeper Signals has a AI bot built in to help interpret and make sense of things. Hogan just bought the a product that creates AI reports. From combining
Mhm.
the Hogan assessment, but other assessments as well as 360 interviews. Anyway, that's a separate, I mean, it's related to APA, but it's separate. That's more like our divisional stuff. But I think the challenge for APA is there's so many levels of this, as you implied, right? There's the everyday use in our work and as society, as divisions. There's the aspects related to its use in society, right? And its implications for individuals and communities and society and the mental health as well as other kinds of effects. I heard the Speaking of Psychology, the latest podcast. APA has a very cool podcast, and which I don't listen to often enough. And the latest one from a couple of weeks ago, I just finished hearing it today. It's on the effects of AI on our cognition, our cognitive skills. What the research says. There's very little research on that so far, apparently, but it was a good episode related to this because I worry about it. Like, is AI making me less likely to know how to write anymore or think? Things like that. But I guess for APA, the challenge is that a lot of divisions have these needs. We're all volunteers, and so the more that AI can provide curation of tools and good versus bad uses. What are some of the legal and ethical implications? But in a very practical way, instead of making every division have to redo everything, I think that would be super helpful. You can poll people and find out what they're doing, but APA moves so slowly sometimes, and this is an area where we can't afford to be that slow, frankly. So I think doing something sooner rather than later would be much more helpful.
Yeah.
No,
This
that's a
is a
great
great
point.
point. And I also just want to share, particularly for this division of APA, that the changes in AI have made entirely different operating systems possible now for the companies that consulting psychologists seek to
Mhm.
serve, that there's a rebuilding of many organizations that's
Yeah.
happening right now. And so I think what you're saying, Bernardo, is how does the inner workings of SCP perhaps rebuild in response to this so we can be more effective organizationally, but also I think an opportunity for consulting psychologists to support organizations as they go through this transition. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah,
I'm
right.
there's
sure
that
all
piece.
of
Yeah,
these.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but I hear what you're saying that for something to come down from APA that guides it, because otherwise I could also see if divisions are essentially standing up their own unique systems, those are going to look different when in fact we are part of a larger organization. So that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that was all really good points. It is kind of trying to there like we've talked about, there's so many different facets of this. So it's like how your division is using it, how your profession is using it, how psychology as a whole is using it, how APA is using it. But I think you brought up a really good point of just if we could get something for divisions in general to help you guys,
Mhm.
and that could be
Yes.
quicker. That's not like because you're correct, some things take a long time, like manuals
Right.
or, some of the health advisories can take a while, all that
Right.
kind of stuff. This is not something that we can take 2 years to figure out, because at that point
Brilliant.
it's light years past where we're at then.
That's right.
So if we could just get kind of like a foundation for everyone, and then we can kind of go from there. We can be like, okay, well, what would work for some divisions versus another? Everyone's divisions all work very differently. But if we could just get a practical use, like you were saying, of a
Yeah.
foundation for everyone, we could go from there. And that could be quicker. That could be, in the next few months or something. So that's
Yeah.
definitely something I've made note of, and I will bring back to my team. We have our team meeting tomorrow. So I was happy this was on a Monday.
If I could just add one more piece, and then I know
Yeah,
Amanda had a question, but just something that you could do probably, I don't know if it's quickly or not, but having some way to navigate the APA website with AI to get answers more quickly, having a knowledge base that could be more framed, whatever tool, I don't
yeah,
know, I don't want to get into the technical details, but many organizations now have like a searchable way of getting answers. So if you want to know like what's the best way to blah blah blah, or who's at APA does this, or what does APA say about X, Y, and Z, it's
yeah,
kind of really hard right now. Even as a new division officer, just navigating stuff is just very hard. So it's to go to this and go to that, and if AI could really help with that, and having it packaged by APA would help a lot. And then you would also know what people are inquiring, and you could you could fine tune it that way.
yeah. We could look at the metrics, see where everyone's at. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that at least from our office, we definitely know that our website is not always the most navigational. We know that our
Mhm.
area for division engagement, we try to keep it a certain way more user friendly, but that's because we are the ones that are making changes to it and whatnot. We can kind of uh, do it a little bit of how we want. I wouldn't say entirely.
Mhm.
Our web team still gets a lot of say on that. But that's definitely something I can bring to them. Again, the more we hear things like this, the more we can bring it and say, no, we've heard from multiple divisions that this is something that should be worked on. This is not just something that like one of us raised our hand and said, oh, we kind of don't like it. No, it's a problem. It should be something fairly easy for people to go on to, because then people stop. Um, Frankly, people, if they can't find it in the first, 60 seconds maybe, a lot of people don't really want to search, which I understand. When I go to a website, I usually want to find it really quickly, and I don't blame them. So if we could make it a little bit easier, and use AI, that could be an option for us. So I've definitely made note of that. Thank you for bringing that up. I think someone else had their hand raised.
Amanda Ray Shelton.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. I've got a bit of a sore throat at the moment, so if you could bear with me. It sounds a little similar to how other things have gotten rolled out at a larger level, where just for example, there is this national wide move to move folks that are in like construction from their paper plans that are huge and binders and they carry them around to something that's known as digital delivery. They've had like a 2-year time frame, and they've had like check boxes along the way, so to speak. Like you have to have a general vague policy put into place by this time, and then figure out what the nuances of that mean by this time. Even if something of that lines was adopted, where we know it's going to take years to get to the end goal, but if something was indicated that we want the divisions to make their recommendations by this time, it can continue to move things along and not feeling like the waiting game of waiting for someone else to move. And then
Yeah,
it becomes a larger collaborative effort amongst all divisions.
yeah, absolutely. I also think it kind of nudges some in a way. Some, I mean, because I think this is at the forethought of a lot of divisions, but at the same time, some of them probably have other things that are more on the priority list, just depending on what their division is doing and also how many volunteer leaders they have.
Mhm.
Not every division has however many, and then there's some divisions that have 25 division leaders, so they have a lot more they can do with their time because they have so many people. But I think it
And
could be a good nudge for them of, hey, this is something to work towards
mhm.
collectively. Um, and some, they might not be the first one to do it, but at least this tells them collectively they can lean on other divisions to say, like, what are you doing? And stuff like that.
Mhm. I had another thought and it just went away with the wind. It's Monday.
It is Monday. It's totally okay. I had 2 cups of coffee. So if you think about it, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. Absolutely.
Just a thought, Bernardo, would be links to other AI sites. I think in terms of Marshall Goldsmith, have you looked at his? Um,
Hmm.
and that might be a start. We could get just on our own APA and Vision 13 links to other
Okay.
AI resources would be, I think, real helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? I know this is a big topic, but this is all really helpful. It's all things I can take back and see what we can get moving. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to move on to advocacy. But again, if you have anything, and even after this town hall, please feel free to reach out to your leadership. And if you need to add anything to this, it can get to me. It will get to me, and we will make sure it's heard. So I did reach out to our advocacy office. We always have a lot going on with advocacy. If you ever need to know, like this moment, what is APA doing? We do have an advocacy actions page, and it kind of goes through all of the. Yes, I see a hand raised.
Hi, my name is Daline. I'm actually a PhD student, third year. So this is all brand new to me. I'm practically a baby researcher, and I'm sort of in between with the AI. I love it, but I don't hate it. But I grew up in the era of AOL. That's, it's one of those things that I'm getting used to. So one thing that does concern me as a as a future doctor, it's like, how can I, with AI and with all these, how do I put this, data platforms, uh,
Yeah,
how can I protect client data? I'm very concerned that because I work in a hospital and I am consistently here in New York City getting letters that there's a data breach, there's a data breach. And it's not spam, it's literally a letter to my house. I would love to see what the APA is going to do when it comes to safeguarding um, clients' information, especially with the use of virtual private networks. If you're doing data collection online, I
yeah,
really think with the way hackers work, those are little things that could fall between the cracks. And again, I don't want to wait 2 years. I don't want to wait 5 years to find out that, data that I've collected has been compromised. Yeah.
absolutely. No, that is definitely something that we've heard a lot, I would say. That's probably one of the top concerns, I would say, with AI that we heard from divisions is the data. And I think that's a very real thing to be a little nervous about, if not a lot nervous about. That's definitely something on our radar that I think we'll be working on. And again, I totally understand when you say you don't want it in 2 or 5 years. Um, I definitely think that is something that will be out before then. Again, I think it'll continue to change, but I think the first iteration, it should be pretty quick. And that is also why our ethics office was on some of these calls to talk about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
If I may just share something, this is probably on your radar, but just to piggyback on what Delina
Yeah.
was saying, clinical people in practice generally use, different EHR systems, and many of these now have baked in AI capabilities for notes, et cetera. And the terms of service agreements that psychologists need to consent to in order to use these platforms explicitly state that the platforms own all of the data that is recorded, collected, synthesized, and that they have a right to sell that de-identified data. I wanted to say that out loud. I'm sure that that is probably something that came up in those conversations, but it would be so amazing to have the weight of APA behind this right now, very common business practice for the systems that psychologists often use. Just to have some regulation around that.
No, absolutely. I hear you. I
Yeah.
think that you're correct. We definitely heard it. But again, the more we hear it, the more it kind of goes up on the priority list because we know it's something really on everyone's mind. Like, this is really, AI is such a large topic. I've said it 5 billion times already, but when we start to get items that we can practically work on instead of eating the whole elephant, as they say, versus like taking some bites, it's a lot more manageable for a large organization, but also for divisions instead of saying, like, just conquer this entire topic when no one, divisions do not have time for that. Also, you have other items you're working on other than AI. That's although AI is very hot topic right now, it's not the only topic that divisions are working on. So if we can get some things that we can start moving, hopefully that opens your bandwidth too as division leaders, where it's something off your plate. Like, we will work on it. We will keep you included and we want you to be a part of the conversation, but maybe it's not something you have to take on your own. So please, whatever, if you think we've heard it before, always say it because it helps. So I've definitely made note of that. These are all really great. Anyone else? Awesome. I'll talk a little bit about advocacy. Um, like I was saying, we do have an advocacy actions webpage. I will actually give you the link for this because my coworker gave me the link for this. But this is a great website. I even go on this as someone that works at APA just to kind of get a little bit of what we're doing. And it takes you to where you can also sign up for newsletters. And that is very helpful because when you have a lot going on, you don't have to even read it at that moment, but it's something you can look back on later in the week or, just keep it in there and you can see what's going on. But it gives you action alerts, which is really helpful. So if there's anything that we think is really important for you to talk to your senator about, your congressman, anyone in maybe your local government, state government, we will put an action alert out and we will even usually give you language, all your information. We make it as easy as possible so you can get those out because those are really important. And that is something that I'm going to bring up of when members of Congress hear a lot of public outcries about things that are going around with psychology, it helps our cause. It gives such a positive impact from them to hear from so many. And thankfully, APA does have a really good network of advocates, of individuals just like yourselves that do, when we send out an action alert, answer the call and they send out things, they send out emails, they make phone calls. I mean, we have hill drops where people go on Capitol Hill, which is awesome. All these things that really do make a difference. I think a lot of people think, it's just one email. What is that really going to do? Well, when they get 1,000 emails, it really clogs up the emails and makes it see like this is actually something that people really care about. And there's a lot of psychologists in our organization. We have a very big voice as long as we use it. So definitely look at those advocacy actions, sign up for those newsletters if it's something that you're interested in. And again, if you ever have questions about advocacy, We do have a division advocacy partner program. So divisions work with our advocacy office. They get reminders all the time of what's going on and kind of get like a little bit more of a in-depth connection. So again, if you guys ever have advocacy questions, but one thing that is coming up that I was told to actually say to everyone is the CMS physician fee schedule. The submission for comments will be coming up in August. So this is going to be the U.S. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services on new policies, new services, way to improve coverage. It's released annually between June and August, and then there is a 60-day comment period. So that is what we want you to be aware of. This is a great place for you to share feedback, share concerns. CMS will not know what psychologists and their patients need unless we tell them, unless psychologists give them the comments and let them know what is going on. Otherwise, they're going in uneducated. They don't, they're not psychologists. They are not working with your patients. So this is definitely something that's important. We do want you to keep track of some of the challenges you face with treating patients. This might not work for all of you, but if you do have that kind of real life example, those comments are really helpful for CMS to understand maybe what some of the impact is going to be on some of their proposed changes. Again, I do have a link for you, and this will give you more information about what is coming up. I do not believe the comments are open yet, but all of our information is on here. Again, it's always good to have your voice heard. I also saw Joni. Yes, definitely reach out to Ryan Warner. I've worked with him. I email with him, and he is part of that program. So if you ever need advocacy information, please let us know. But that is my point about advocacy. Does anyone have anything you would like on our radar or comments,
Yeah,
concerns?
sure. Something,
Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned patients, and I think from our division perspective, we're not, I mean, some
yeah,
of the PEEP members may be doing that, so it may be relevant to some members who do, who are therapists as well. But as a division, that's not what we focus on,
yeah,
that kind of work. So I think that raises a question for me about how you and the division representative, staff are thinking about the different needs of the different divisions, because you have so many and they're all, focusing on different things and needs. So I'm wondering about internal awareness and, what kind of advocacy different groups might need. So in our case, it might have to do with, distinguishing between different kinds of psychology, what are the restrictions that some of us may face due to over complicated licensure or license, things that are focused only on clinicians instead of applied psychologists like us. So I'm wondering how you're thinking about that from an APA perspective and how we
yeah.
can better connect with you to represent what we need as a division.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're correct. There are so many different divisions, and everyone has their own, I would say, advocacy slate of items that are at the top of their list. And they do not generally overlap, I would say. Everyone's, well, sometimes, but it's still different. You might say that you have one issue and it kind of sounds like another division, but then when you get down to it, it's like, no, it's still kind of different. I would say our advocacy office is definitely the one that knows more kind of the in and outs because they have this division advocacy program partnership where they hear from your division advocacy lead directly to hear more information. They get information from our advocacy office, and it's just more of a conversation, a two-way, than just checking like our advocacy website. Another thing is we do, I believe yearly at this point, ask each divisions to give us interest areas to kind of see what you are working on or is something that is kind of at the top of your list for, say, the next year. I will say that this depends on the president. Usually it's whoever's presidential year. Sometimes they have a little bit of their own interests for the next year, their presidential initiatives. So that does kind of change year to year, which will change what kind of advocacy you're looking at. But overall, a lot of times divisions are doing advocacy and we don't always know about it. That's what's kind of important about conversations like this or just keeping in touch as me as a liaison to, check in with divisions and say, like, do you need support? Do you need to talk to the advocacy office? Because I don't work in advocacy, but I can get you in touch. I can get you a meeting. I can get you more resources. Um, Kind of whatever you need from me or from APA, I can hopefully get you there or we can figure it out together if I don't know. So I would say that's probably the best answer is we don't always know what our divisions are doing. And that also has to do with we have some divisions that really do their own thing. Which is not a good or a bad thing. It's just how it is. Um,
Mhm.
they don't say potentially do much with APA. We even have some that are non-contract, so we do not handle like say their membership or anything like that. Um, so it's different from every single one. Some like to share and be really involved and reach out and ask for support, ask for meetings. And then we have some that don't, and that's okay. It's also, like I was saying, the workload. We have some that have so many division leaders, they don't potentially need as much support from me because they have so many volunteers working on things. But then we have others that volunteer leaders, as you guys know, have your own lives, have your own work. This is not your paid gig. So we have some that do need support, and that's where I come in. So if you guys do need advocacy help, I definitely recommend flagging it for me, flagging it for Ryan, and then we can definitely get into more talks with the advocacy office, get you what you need, or they can even help you figure out what you need. Like maybe you don't know what you don't know. Um, so I would say our advocacy office is very helpful and very responsive. I applaud them. They do a lot of good work, especially in the last year or so with the amount of stuff coming out. They've had to really get going. So if you need something, definitely let us know. Does that kind of answer your question?
Not really, but it was helpful to hear what you had to say.
Yes.
Hi, this is Dalina again, or D, whichever way choose. So I work in a hospital, and one thing that I do have to mention is specifically the hospital that I work at. It is a mental health clinic in the hospital. We have a lot. So I'm studying industrial organizational psychology. To me, it's really important after this big, beautiful bill that a lot of our patients get taken care of. So I'm on the underground. I'm a senior clerk. I'm like a little ant, but I'm one of those firecrackers. Like I'm like, this patient has Medicare. They have a 24 or 20% copayment. They can't afford even to pay their rent. And I work specifically in an area of New York City that's very impoverished. How that affects me is that if they can't pay, the hospital doesn't get paid, then there comes a funding issue, then comes everybody else's paycheck. And plus, I'm in 1199, the union. We're all screaming here in New York City, the reeling the consequences still of COVID. Even though we interlap, we're reeling the consequences of now of this big beautiful bill because you're seeing the patients again falling like fireflies because they can't afford to pay.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it. And it's not fair both for the patient or even for ourselves.
Yeah.
And
No, it's definitely something to bring up, and that's definitely, I would say, on our radar. I know a lot of the congressional inner workings that have been going on. We do a lot of work on the Hill. I know our advocacy office, but even Dr. Evans and a lot of our leadership make their way onto the Hill to advocate for us, and for psychologists and for patients. Um, it's definitely something that we hear. And again, we need to hear stories like that. So it can be reminded that that needs to be in the forefront. Um, but it's definitely, unfortunately, not the only case that we've heard of that, you know, patients and psychologists alike are being potentially negatively impacted by what is going on in hospitals or in other settings. So definitely something important to bring up and definitely something on our minds. So thank you for working there and for saying that. So thank you. I'm sorry you're in that position.
no, 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 it's fine. I'm learning. It's fun,
Yeah,
it's interesting as a researcher, but it's also like a little jarring because I'm not getting paid enough, but I'm working with what I've got, and I'm hungry and I'm
yeah,
passionate and I'm just a baby, but I'm almost ready to be a grown up in this field. So let's see how it goes.
yeah. Tony?
Hi, I'd like to make sure we leave time to talk a little bit about the convention since you're our liaison for that too. Both like, I mean, what people can do now coming in a couple of weeks or but also in future, why you would want to even go to APA convention, things like that. That we have our own conference, of course, annual for SCP, but yeah, tell us more about that.
Yeah. If anyone is going, I will be there the whole time. So feel free to stop by the membership pavilion. We have our own little area for divisions. We have ribbons if you're into that. And we're just there if you want to have a chat, if you have questions. We're also really there to talk to all of the non-division members that are at convention, that we can let them know that there's a space for them. A lot of times it's surprising, but we get a ton of people that come by and say, "What is this?" And you would think most people would know, but that is very not true. And a lot of people, it's their first time even being a part of anything APA is convention. So being able to see the division engagement office, hear about what your divisions are doing, um, get a ribbon, see that they can join is really important. It's kind of like when you go to university, and if you go to a really big university, you just want to find your home. That's what divisions are for people. It's their home where they can find people that are like-minded, and it's nice that we get a spot where we can hopefully lead them to there. So again, if you are there, let me know. But a few things that I did ask the convention office of, like, some must things that they think convention attendees should go to. The DC block party is something that is happening at convention. I know this is a social, this isn't like something academic, but who doesn't want to have a good time at convention? I think a lot of people go there for academics, but also want to have a nice time. This is going to be at the convention center. You don't have to go somewhere else. It is on Thursday evening. It is going to have like DC food. And as someone who lives in DC, I think it'll be really great. We have an awesome city if you have not been before and it's going to be your first time. We have a lot of culture. We have just a lot going on in our city. And to kind of hopefully bring it down and bring it to convention, I think is going to be really exciting. And you get to, network if you want to do that. If you don't want to network, I understand. Maybe you're going to be done by that time of the day. but you can at least have a snack and listen to some good food. Some other things going on, I would definitely encourage you to, at the end of the day, look at the program. I know it can be very daunting. It can look like a lot because there is a lot going on, but I would definitely take some time before you come, look over it. If you have questions about stuff, let someone know. Our convention office and our support system for that is great. They are ready to answer your questions. They want to hear your questions so that you come to convention and you kind of feel ready. You're like, let's do this. We're going to have a great time. I would also definitely recommend downloading the app. I know some people don't want to download another app, but when you're in the convention center and you're trying to find something, it's really helpful to just be able to like click on your screen and say, what room is this in? Because it's a big convention center and there's a lot going on. But if you do need something and you're in the Solution Center, you can always pop by the membership pavilion and we can help you find where you need to go. I would also say that there is a disability inclusion networking event, which some of our other divisions, I believe it's 33 and 35, are co-hosting. Another just great way to meet some of other divisions and have a nice time. It's an in-person event. It's on Friday, and food and beverages will be provided. Could just be a good time. I've heard good things about it. We also have Raise Race. I don't know if anyone is into racing. I've heard really good things about this. I've quit running, so I will not be doing this anymore, but it goes to a good cause. And it's actually at the Congressional Cemetery. If you have not been to DC, I know it sounds a little weird that it's at a cemetery, but it is a very nice cemetery, and it actually has very beautiful cherry blossoms during cherry blossom season. Also, just a very cool area of DC. Um, so I would consider doing that if you're into that. I would also just mention the big highlights. There's going to be the presidential opening session. Dr. Wendy Williams is great. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing opening session. You'll also hear from Dr. Evans. I know we were also already talking about AI, so I will mention that there is a division session on AI therapists, friends, and assistants, and understanding AI across disciplines. And that is going to be on the first day on Thursday. So if AI, like we were talking about, is something really important to you, if it's something you really want to learn more about, or just kind of want to hear from what other divisions are thinking about AI, I think that could be a really good session. We also have an ethics committee session on AI. As you can see, there is a theme of AI. It's the unintended ethical consequences of AI adoption, and that will also be on Thursday. So a few AI related. That's too much for you. Maybe pick one or two AI. But our chief of ethics will be on that, and she was actually in our cohort meetings. So she already heard from some division leaders. I think that will be a really good talk. And she will come with some good thoughts that she's already had from those meetings. So that is kind of what I would say for convention. Those are the big things. But I would also remind you, if you are doing virtual or you're coming in person, the on-demand sessions are available for you until December 2nd. So if you miss something, if you couldn't make it, whatever, definitely keep that on your calendar and know about it. You have until December 2nd to watch those. So, or if you want to watch it again, maybe you thought it was that interesting. So, but I think convention's going to be great. DC is where I've lived for about 10 years, so it's a great city to come to. If you need any recommendations for food, I'm happy to help you.
Well, this has been wonderful, Maggie. Thank you so much for sharing about the convention, about advocacy, about AI, current initiatives. I think that's really important for us in the consulting psychology domain to hear about all this. One thing that I'd like to add to your list of a must do at the convention is attend the Division 13 SCP social. And this is a formal invitation to you to join us. We're at the City Tap bar restaurant on
Yeah.
Friday evening. And so we'd love to see you there. And for anyone else who's going to be in DC, you don't have to actually be at the convention to come. So we'll be at the City Tap, and I just talked to Heather this morning, our executive director, and she told me what the menu is going to be for our division and for our social. It's going to be good, and we also have refreshing beverages as well. So please feel free to come and join us. That's I think it's at 5:30 to 7. So. Thank you again, Maggie. And if any, she's already made herself available to you. So if you have any further questions, please reach out. Or you can reach any of us in the executive board. We can also reach out to Maggie if we don't want to clog her inbox too much. But thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you in DC. And if anybody else wants to participate virtually, we've got a hashtag going here, SCP in DC. So we
I
can
like
see
it.
you all virtually as well. So great. Really appreciate it and everyone's questions as well. So thanks a lot.
Thank you all. This was great.